Welcome to the Khyber Pass podcast. I'm your host, Paul Metzger, bringing you interviews with musicians with improvisation as a center of their endeavor. This week's guest is Davu Seru, percussionist, cellist, composer. He was kind enough to sit down with me and share conversation and a bit of his story in relation to becoming a musician. He appeared at the Khyber Pass Cafe in quartet. Pat Keen, double bass. Benjamin Mansavage Klein, tuba. Noah Ophoven Baldwin, B-flat and E-flat cornets. Davu Seru percussion. As always, this podcast is brought to you with the generous support of the Khyber Pass Cafe. Before the interview, I have a short excerpt of the evening's performance. The interview will follow. So thank you, Davu Seru, for being part of the Khyber Pass podcast system incorporated.
It's all incorporated, bro.
Yeah,
you gotta, it's the layers, bro.
Oh yeah, this is a fully layered, fully integrated podcast solution. But what I'd like to, what I'd like to get into with you, I have so many questions. All right, which is that's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to get a picture of you before drums, before you're just a kid. Where were you living?
In a neighborhood north of downtown Minneapolis, which I don't remember the name of the neighborhood, but it was one of the many in what people call the North Side, which is just west of I-94. So not northeast. That's something I've had to say to people who don't know the North Side very well, that it's not northeast. Northeast, when I was a kid, as my uncle would tell me, when I was getting ready to I think I was going from 4th to 5th grade and leaving for the first time the neighborhood.
Okay.
I think it was the first time, to a school outside from, I was bused, to a school in Northeast, and my uncle said, "Oh boy, you better watch out for them Polacks."
Yeah.
And I thought, a Polak?
Yeah,
I thought it was just like a monster.
That's some exotic,
with some
scary
fangs
shit.
And the Polacks.
Yeah.
And so that's where I ended up. And so now I have a sense for what people mean when they just sort of put the two together. They're both historically working class people on the move, immigrants from Europe, and plenty of Jews for the Twin Cities, given our colored history with Jewish people on the North Side in particular.
Well, in St. Paul has, I believe, the largest Russian Jew population.
So St. Agnes isn't that oh no, that's not Jewish though, it's Catholic.
No.
Or Catholic, but I'm just thinking it's got like the Russian architecture.
Yeah, they go old school, but it's all about Jesus.
It is. Super
and
Jesus.
saints and all that.
3 Jesuses. So the
Jews don't like a saint. They don't even. They think, what's a saint?
Speaking
what is
of
that?
Jesus, the neighborhood when I was a kid on the north side, what I remember before things got bad was all the churches that were former synagogues.
Solid.
And so the one across from where we were living was Pastor Paul's ministry, and it had, David's star in concrete, like in relief on this big giant old building, and then it'd say Jesus is Lord.
That's great.
On the same building.
Yeah.
And so that was the first sort of mind fuck, ethnic mind, ethnic bewilderment, sort of the crossing of things.
Well, so what kind of roughly year, just so I can
so this so this is in the early 80s. By 85, things began to change a great deal on the north side, and it went from, again, a neighborhood that I remember that was had already the reputation of being a black neighborhood, but there was still working class white people kind of spread around, and so.
But the projects had been built by then
no,
easily.
and the projects had turned over from being Jewish to black, and then in the early 80s, you started to see Hmong people coming in.
Okay.
So they were a pretty extreme minority in the projects. But I was born in the projects along Ocean Highway there, and then we kind of jumped around into cheap rental housing throughout the neighborhood. But it was always in this big family context, like aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents still around, some great-grands until the mid-'80s. And these are all people who came up to Minnesota from Iowa after the Second World War. My family members, they followed, industry after the war, but they were always on the periphery. They were working junkyards. So who's
that? What is that? You're on your mom's side, your dad's side?
On my mom's side. My dad's people came up from Memphis at around the same time.
Okay.
Around the time of the Second World War, or just after. But the north side in the early 80s, when there were a lot of old people around still. It was kind of the end of one of the positive effects of segregation. That meaning the black middle class had to live with poor black folks, and so there were black businesses. There was a black grocery store, and this mattered at the time. And so we were talking before you hit record about our children and some of my students in a younger generation of folks who. I don't know. I got to grow up with my great-grandmother around, and all these people, my kid is alone.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of that, did you have siblings and shit?
I have a younger sister. She's 38, 39.
Okay.
So we shared a mother, but not a father. But I was raised by her father. He was in the house. My stepfather. Okay. He was from Chicago. He was a gangbanger who fled some pretty rough times in Chicago in the 70s, came up here and found a little piece of paradise for a little while in the 80s. And then shit got hard. But he came up and met my mom, and she was from here, and her mom was from Iowa. And the people who came on my mom's side from Iowa after the Second World War these are black families in farming communities going back to the 1880s. They'd been in Iowa and the upper Midwest for a long time.
Wow.
Before the Great Migration. And had come from Virginia before that. And so I've got some roots to go back to the First and Second World War, basically, in the Twin Cities, and spent all of my childhood in North Minneapolis until I was old enough to leave my mama's house, and the expectation was that that's what you would do. So I did. And I crossed over to South Minneapolis and now to St. Paul. So.
All right. So what's happening, like, with you as far as music on your horizon? Because we know the future with Child Davu.
Yeah.
So what do you hear and experience that may be starting to turn your head on?
There were no musicians in the family that I had any contact with directly, but my stepfather, during this moment that his high mark in his life so far, He was in his early 20s, I think, was selling dope. And we had a Cadillac. And we had, this prototype big screen TV with the projector.
Oh, I remember those. Oh my God, wealthy people had that shit.
This shit would come through the house hot.
Yeah.
And so we would
have to bring it in at night.
Yeah, these weird things would come in that didn't always work right.
Yeah.
They did. They never. But there was this object in the house.
Yeah.
One of those things, eventually included a drum kit. He brought a drum kit in the house because when he was a kid, he always wanted to play, or something. And so there was a drum set behind the dining room table in our apartment.
But what's happening with what you're listening to? I mean, is there recorded shit people are playing?
No. So as I was saying, there were no musicians that I had any contact with directly. So I didn't ever hear live music until I was maybe 18, 19, right? Live. It was always the radio. And black radio. It was always only ever KMOJ radio, which is...
Really? That was your station?
Yeah, because it was in the projects.
Yeah.
It was broadcast from the projects by people who lived in the projects. We're on the north side.
Yeah.
And so that was what I grew up listening to, and it was always, what people now call the Minneapolis sound, the kind of the projects emerging around Prince before he left. And then eventually pop, just top 40 stuff. Yeah. Michael Jackson and Prince was he was my first, sort of like my first musician. The first stuff I
You're aware of
as,
that's Prince. Yeah. I'm hearing Prince.
And he's from here.
This
and he
is
lives
wicked.
Here.
Yeah.
And my parents knew him pretty well when they were kids because he was just, like me, kind of broke little Negro boy running around the little slice of North Minneapolis that black people were allowed to venture into.
Right.
And so he grew up with my parents that way, and they go sledding together and go-karts, and they'd see him walking up and down the street. And so I had some identifiers, some things about them, hearing it on top 40 stuff that was
and
important.
He's a tangible cat. That's someone like me. And he's on as far as like in the neighborhood,
And weird, like I'm realizing I am. And people from the Twin Cities are, and the more work that I do outside of here and going into the communities elsewhere, particularly black communities, the more I realize we are the black people who move here.
Yeah.
And Prince is like the icon that represents that most for people. Yeah. Strange, queer in the old sense.
Yeah.
And the new.
Yeah.
And so he was the first, but I wasn't listening to him as a budding musician. But
what were you liking though? What were your tracks like?
When I started identifying with an instrument
and you're hearing him, and what songs did you like?
Oh, Prince in particular. Well, the radio stuff. Let's Go Crazy, Purple Rain.
The shit that was.
And then also, of course, Darling Nikki, the sexy shit. Because I was so close to some of that already because a lot of my family members I come from Chitlin Circuit folks. People, again, who were on the periphery of industry, hawking shit and working junkyards. Okay. And so people who were in the sex industry, and they were either Johns or they were selling it, buying it, or both. And so I also remember seeing things like Rudy Ray Moore house party records in my grandmother's collection.
No shit.
My grandmother had the Sensuous Black Woman Meets the Sensuous Black Man.
Yeah.
And it's a picture of two black folks naked with these big, beautiful bodies looking right at you, holding hands gently together. A black man and a black woman staring out at you, and they're surrounded by tantric sort of symbols, but of all sort of afroed black men and black women in tantric positions. Yeah. That shit in my grandmother's record collection. Yeah. That was already there was already that kind of that dirty part. That dirty thing in my childhood that Prince brought out. He sublimated it. He brought it out into the air, into the light, so it was okay.
In a way, though, just, thinking, how dirty is it, though, and by that I mean the idea of dirty and hidden and secret if your grandma has that in with her regular records, then maybe it's looked at differently than dirty.
No, in my life it was dirty. It was
Okay.
dirty in the sense that, but that was good, like funk.
No, I hear
Right,
you.
so it wasn't dirty in the sense that because we weren't church folks. There were no church people in my family when I was a kid.
Okay.
That happened later. When they found God, it was more the profane side, and so it was drugs and alcohol and knife fights and children running around the whole time.
Yeah.
and so dirty was like it was normal.
Yeah.
Prince, but my point was that it was going from Rudy Ray Moore's house records and just like unrepressed, completely unrepressed expression of desire to Prince's like pop, shiny, just the ass cheeks hanging out, just the cheeks, right?
That's
all you get to see.
A nice gloss.
And
well
glam,
airbrushed.
the glam thing from the 80s, right? Like that made it okay to have out in public.
Yeah.
So it was a kind of affirmation and recognition. So that, but I wasn't still at that. It was just identity. I was not thinking about music. The music was amazing.
Yeah.
I
remember from that time. I mean, I know you weren't drum wise, but that tune by the time 777-9311.
Yeah.
That cracked my head. I thought that was insanity.
Yeah, a bunch of marching patterns distributed around snare drum, or the snare, the hi-hats, and little splash cymbals.
Yeah. And a drum machine, I found out later, is that he didn't play it.
I didn't know it was a drum machine.
Yeah, and then people
live.
figured out how to play it, thinking...
And then he was like, oh, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Nobody did that.
Like the hi-hat is a drum machine, like an 808 or something. And then, but he played kit to it.
I see. Okay.
And I found that out. I
saw them do it live on TV, though.
I saw that on Channel 2, yeah? Maybe?
And I don't think I saw it when it was live, but I've seen video of them playing that song.
Yeah.
Because I went back to it relatively recently for some reason, and I felt like I saw him doing it. Maybe not.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. It's just, I thought that was a real high water mark for local music. That particular track was killing.
So that stuff was around.
Yeah.
So was the other stuff my parents... I was listening to the music my parents listened to, but Prince would be this first stuff that I identified with as my own. Walking around with headphones on, listening to FM radio.
So a drum kit shows up at your house.
And then it's winter and you're bored, and because we didn't go outside in the winter that much. We avoided it.
Yeah.
And so you start messing around because you're bored.
Yeah.
And I did, and I never really got very far past sort of James Brown shuffle, sort of funk shuffling.
Yeah.
And then...
So what, are you putting on a record, a James Brown record, and kind of figuring?
That was what was in everything already anyway, and then listening to hip-hop, and so it was just... practicing that all the time until you got bored.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a teacher, and I just got bored and then go and do something else. It didn't get serious until after high school, and I was, stretching out and listening to, Nirvana and then going backwards into the 60s and 70s, Hendrix and Mitch Mitchell and people, and becoming excited about louder music, I guess. And stuff
John Bonham, maybe?
I wasn't hip enough. He was still too much a part of the sound of Led Zeppelin for me to really... Like, I never... I didn't dig it until after I'd been already listening to Mitch Mitchell so much.
Yeah.
And then I went from Mitch Mitchell to Elvin, which is the backwards, but... so those were the early... And Max Roach... Eventually, because it was so melodic and hip as hell, the pictures of him, seeing photographs of those guys, and while listening to the music, looking at records, it built the whole myth in my head that I still live in some ways, the sort of middle to late 50s thing that was happening in New York with people like Miles, when Miles is doing stuff with Gil Evans, and Mingus doing stuff with Roach and Monk, and then the kind of third string cats, George Russell, and stuff that's happening around Gunther Schuller. So that very kind of, I watched a documentary lately about the Time photographer, W. Warren, a time life photographer who had a loft.
Okay.
W. Eugene Smith, maybe, who had a loft in New York City in the late 50s into the early 70s. Anyhow, and he had recording devices everywhere, and he had film running, and he was taking of everything, man. And there were groups rehearsing above, groups rehearsing below, and he just lived in this world of images for projects that he would never finish, that were just, he was always working on the magnum opus or something.
Yeah.
But that world was pretty hip. I mean, pretty uniquely American bohemia.
Yeah.
A kind of black and white musicians sorting out some pretty serious shit, especially given how close most of the black musicians were still to the South.
Yeah.
And what was happening in the South. So it was a pretty serious, unlike the present.
It was
moment that
a
way.
little bit freaky to me of that era to think how, on that topic of black and white cats, like Miles, the people he'd bring in, he didn't
Zoot Sims, and none of those guys did. I mean, he would just. They were all chasing this idol, the music.
Yeah, man.
That they were chasing that, and also concerned with being like hip and modern.
Yeah.
Really, like that charge for them was so real. All we do is pretend.
Yeah.
I feel like, So enamored in the myth of that stuff, becoming enamored in the myth with that stuff, studying or listening to Max Roach, and then I'd go and try and play it.
Yeah, you were.
I was listening to the records and going home and Mitch Mitchell and all those guys and spending 6 hours at a time in my practice space.
Well, this is a jump. Practice space. How are you having that?
So now I've gone from I left my mother's house in high school. I stopped playing the drums and I started painting. Expressionism, a little bit of abstraction, figurative, very colorful painting. A young man trying to figure shit out.
Yeah.
Trying to express something. And then when I left my mom's house and moved to South Minneapolis and was working in an art museum and started playing drums again because I'm surrounded by musicians.
Yeah, well, at the art museum, there's going to be a lot of people that are musicians. Yeah, that's
Thor,
That's one. There's a bunch of other ones.
Were
up through there.
Yeah, so a lot of folks who were there, and I'd say, I'll play some drums.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, here, Petrowski. That's right, Tim Petrowski. I'd go into these basement punk rock kind of things and just beat the shit out of some drums. And then I go out to the suburbs to this kid I'd go and play with who was a Hendrix freak and Jimmy Page freak. Okay. And he was a really talented guitar player who was at like 17, 18, like knocking down a fifth of E&J in his bedroom that his parents would buy him. Just like it, and he was spoiled rotten. And could play the hell out of some guitar. And we go in his basement and just jam some Hendrix blues. And so I'm doing kind of both those for a while. Southside, dirty, dusty basement, playing as loudly as possible while people are screaming and everyone is happy and everyone is working on ego death. Yeah. To going out to the burbs to a different kind of effort, different kind of effort altogether.
That's a different trajectory.
Yeah, man. And so,
well, where's Brown Rainbow in that?
That's
the church?
Much later.
Much later, okay.
Because there's a lot between those two things. So I was meddling around with rock as I was studying Max Roach, and trying to figure Elvin out, and I eventually got into the avant-garde stuff happening in the late 60s through, how did I get sort of I guess the start was, Coltrane, and then 90s free jazz that was coming.
How'd you get
people
to that?
coming to town.
Live.
That you'd go and see, because I was now going out and seeing live music because I was playing.
Yeah.
And so I was following drummers, and so who's the drummer? Who's coming to town? Who's the drummer?
Yeah.
And I go and see. And so now I'm got this pipeline back to the 60s again, into the where David S. Ware and people are coming from. And I learned about the Art Ensemble of Chicago, and the brother of the bassist, Malachi Favors, the bassist for the Art Ensemble, his brother Sam was living here in the 90s at least. And I ran into him through a workshop, like big band workshop at Van Cleef Park near the University of Minnesota. I'd just drop in. I was trying to study, and I'd go to the older cats, and there was a scene, and I'd go and start learning how to play tunes. And I was running into some walls here, and I needed to leave. And so I decided to move to Chicago in the late 90s, and I did for a little time, just about a year. But when I was there, man, I got active with a number of people working on both sides of what is a rather segregated scene in some ways in Chicago, divided by North and South Chicago, and often that's black and white. And the scene going back to the 60s, and the AACM and the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, and what they wrought, and playing with people involved in that organization, playing, a young drummer getting his ass kicked on stage, curating music series, playing with people through that, just
Chicago.
Open, freely improvised,
This
jazz
was all Chicago?
In Chicago.
Oh, so you were making it go.
I was trying to make it go at surviving as a musician, and I ended up with less than no money.
Yeah.
And needed to come back home to my job at the museum to pay back some debt, and decided to stay. I think I had played with the idea of leaving again, but decided to stay after I decided to start taking responsibility for this, a little bit of what it meant to live here as a musician, and started doing series here.
Yeah, you did.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I, tried.
That was,
and
so that's like
2000,
Gus Lucky's
2001.
and that.
Yeah, at Gus Lucky's. And then started annoying people with doing my own thing, and was working really closely with Andrew Lofkus, who lives in Berlin now, bassist, who refused to use an amp, and we got really serious about sound. And so started moving away from the drum kit into just thinking as a percussionist, and working, and then really working directly with the drums, thinking about it as very abstractly, as a piece of technology, rather than a jazz instrument, so,
Yeah, I hear you. So you hooked up with him and started to form.
So we started
stuff.
doing, as a part of the series, Unum was the name of it. We started at Gus Lucky's, which was near 17th and Lake, so near Cedar and Lake, before the building burned down. The gallery,
was it in that building?
Yeah, where the Baraka rug was. It was next to there. Beautiful, 2 storefronts.
Damn.
Concrete floors, concrete walls, concrete ceilings.
Street level.
Yeah, man. It was wonderful, and the acoustics were amazing. And I had a series of, I think it was every Sunday, and we'd play, and then I'd invite people. That's how I met Milo Fine, because I invited him to come in with his ensemble, the Milo Fine Free Jazz Ensemble, to come and play. And then we started working together. Jaron Childs, Charles Gillette. The series, eventually working with John Morgan, who had a label at the time called Meniscus in town, that was presenting sort of international freely improvised music at folks who didn't live here.
Right.
He was putting these records out, and then catching these people when they were coming to town on tour, and they'd come and play as a part of the series. And so I got to to see, and in some cases work with folks who were coming to town through the series, and then I started touring as a part of that whole effort. And as I was having dinner before this, our talking, I was thinking about what it's like to go on tour in a van, and to go to these, figure out, talk to your friends. Where are the places around the country in Kansas City? Where is the place in Lincoln? Where is the place in Boulder? Right? And it'd always be some restaurant.
Is there a place?
Yeah, if there's a place, where is it? And it'd often be a restaurant, a cafe, the basement of a church or a bank. Or some
fucking bank.
Just some weird, or a space that was never intended, where music was never really intended.
Oh, come on, man. Those are all good.
So, and
Motorcycle Garage.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple of years ago, I loved it.
And so, but there are people who have kept them going, these series going, despite all these changes. The gentrification that everybody is becoming familiar with started really making it harder to do this. And so Copper Pass is one of those places. I hope now when people tour, what's in St. Paul, what's in Minneapolis, well, there's this Afghani restaurant in St. Paul that people play at.
We do get a bit of it because we're once a week. And having that line up with
a tour
somebody's tour, and I've been able to work it out sometimes. And we've been able to maybe do something on an off night, if we move a bunch of pieces around, and but that's a beautiful thing to be able to be
You're part of that
small part of what
network.
That means.
I mean, I mentioned the Chitlin circuit before. I mean, that's a kind of there's this boho DIY thing that improvisers do as improvisers. They make shit work. Around the country, and it's a wonderful blessing, and it's great to be a part of. And it's easy to forget that people, even if it sometimes seems futile, are trying to keep this, create opportunities for other people.
It's a big part of it.
So that you also have opportunities. Karma, baby.
Yeah, well, just trying to make things a little bit better. And it gets more and more difficult, and for all those reasons you were pointing out, and not the least of which is gentrification. That has such an impact. And that's what changed so many vibrant scenes down to not. God damn. Well, so then you went right from just having a drum kit that just appeared to chasing down players, finding out, and actually moving to Chicago.
Just up and left with my drums. That was all I took. And my records.
And you're a self-taught cat. You're just out rolling.
And I was living in a housing cooperative in Hyde Park with 21 other people, cooking vegetarian meal once every couple weeks for 20 some other people, doing this. A lot of graduate students from the University of Chicago. I was just dropped into some very strange world, but I was already kind of on this boho kind of, I call it black hippie path. And ended up, again, coming back to the Twin Cities because I was too broke. And needed to write that and figure something else out. And came home and got serious, really serious. I think the thing I learned about myself in Chicago is that I was worthy.
Right on.
And came back and really got huge, serious about it.
Right? That's huge. That's a huge one.
And I tried to make the most of that opportunity. And got busy working with other people and trying to connect with what was happening in the country, elsewhere in Europe. So curating, first Gus Lucky's, then it moved over to the church, which is also gone now, and at 26 in Chicago. And then ran into a wall. I was such a poor student and felt so stupid.
Such a poor student of what?
At school.
Oh.
It was school my whole life.
Just regular.
Man,
such a poor student.
Yeah, I was struggling to make up for years of neglect.
Yeah.
In terms of education, and so I was really, I was the precocious autodidact, but with no chops and nobody to ask for help. There was never anyone to ask to help me with anything, and so I just had made shit up. Right, you improvise.
Yeah.
And I hit a wall, and I decided, how about college?
Okay.
I sucked at school.
But you graduated. High school.
Yeah. 1.8, and they kicked me the hell out the door. Get out. You know George Roberts over at Homewood Studios? Mm-hmm. He was my high school English teacher.
Goddamn.
And he told me, I remember that at around 10th grade, I remember thinking, we've probably done as much for this kid as we can do for him. Mm-hmm. Now we're just holding on to him. Yeah. Right, for the next couple years. He's kind of who he's going to be.
That is a sad little moment for I'm just saying, no matter where you're at. If you're like too like fucking together for the scene, or too fucked as far as like what's happening, is either way or anything in between is sad. Sure. Because you're just fucking marking time.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on to them and keep the streets from getting them, because things were pretty bad by comparison on the north side at the time in the early 90s. And I was coming of age in that, and it was either the police or the folks who were policing the distribution of drugs, the gangs, that you had to be worried about. And so it was, they were just trying to keep us in school. Yeah. And it worked. And then I was done, and I left my mother's house and I had taken myself pretty seriously as a visual artist at that point, and was pretty kind of drunk on that myth now, and identifying a lot with museum culture and the history of art, and reading painstakingly books that I only understand in part due to having a poor foundation. And so after the curating, I eventually decided to go to school and discovered that I was quite good at it. I didn't know that about myself. Yeah. I never had that opportunity to know that. And so I went off and did quite well, and decided that I wanted to keep going. And I still feel like, just like with music, a student. And I hope that never changes.
Yeah, thank God. That's
I hope it never
beautiful,
changes.
man.
The idea that, I'll always be chasing my heroes. I'll always be a student of my heroes. And so, and that list is just growing, that list of people. Now.
So who's a hero right now? Just to randomly pick, 2 or 3 cats that...
In music, I've really spent a lot of time with a specific period of George Russell's, his writing in particular, and this all happened as I started writing. I started, I'd been chasing drummers my whole life as I learned the instrument, and trying to develop my own voice against theirs. Eventually, I started listening to everything else that's happening.
Oh, wait. Those other guys that are standing around, they're doing a thing.
I guess this is a song. I suppose it's not just the drummer. So, no.
That is so great.
But really thinking about, Miles, I was enamored with. I wasn't really chasing the drums in him. It was the romance of it all. It was the modernism. It was the blues in it. There was this hip thing, so hipper than anything else in the world.
And just to say, 90%, this is just a random number, of the cats that he'd bring in did their best work with him. Yep. And I think it's just a handful that had other greatness in them later, but...
Yeah, and that's a good point, too. Because he's a wonderful introduction to the best modern playing, if he's your first. And he was my first. Kind of Blue was the first jazz record for me. And then the tape I had of Monk Trio stuff, but and this was in high school, Kind of Blue, and so I knew Miles Davis's name. I remember when he died. I remember when his name was on the Orpheum of the State Theater. He was passing through town in the 90s just before he died, so I knew him. And so that was the first place I went when I started buying records, and I'd start following Coltrane.
Yeah.
And the other players in the band.
Yeah.
Cannonball Adderley. I remember when I got and Oliver Nelson spun off of that, and so it was like a
and
just
you
doing
see
the
where it
genealogy,
goes.
the genealogy of all the folks, and Styles, and
yeah, man, and just see what they move through and do, and it's another thing I think of that era, because I love thinking about that time as well, the mythology, is when, like, you first, or at least for me, first hearing, like, some live at the 5-spot records,
right,
and you hear how noisy it is, and how it's not like what I think it is, or think it was, like, where people would just sit and go, fuck me forever. You know what I mean? Like, just cracked open. But no, it's just people were at some shitty fucking place. The cash register, give me the fucking thing. You know, you can't really, it's not that awful, but
one of my favorite,
I was surprised by it.
One of my favorite instances of that is live at the Plug Nickel, Miles's quintet, the second one with Tony Williams and Wayne Shorter and Herbie and Ron Carter. And Tony is really young at the time, and it might have been it was the first time Miles, I think, might have ever played in Chicago, or had played in Chicago in a really long time, at least. And Tony Williams is really young on it, and there's a moment where he's playing double time over some blues, and he's just doing it and just tripling things up, and it's this frenetic energy over the top of some blues, and they're in Chicago at the Plug Nickel. And you hear somebody go, when it eventually he drops back into the quarter note, just dong, dong, and you hear somebody right next to the stage say, "Well, about time," or "There you go, young man," or something. This is really it's the I think Rolf Ellison has a story, The Man at Choctaw Station or something, and I think I remember correctly, the idea is that there's always some guy standing. You think he doesn't notice. He doesn't know what's going on because he's gotten used to donning the mask. Who's sitting next to the pot-bellied stove in the general store, who is like some expert. Who has some deep, authentic connection that no one will ever know about. But he is your judge and the main witness at that moment, who's actually listening, who's actually checking you out, and that. There's some of that. There's dramatic irony in the whole performance situation, and sometimes the audience knows more than we do. And that's one of those moments where they insinuate themselves into what's happening. That myth, that experience of listening to those guys. And, young man.
It's so insightful to me to take it out of, like, your room and your record and your intensity, and you hear a live show, and that shit's going down. You think, man.
Where the audience isn't really the audience we've become used to. They were an integral part of what was happening, it seemed. And, the way the myth goes, the musicians say, I'm playing based on what I'm getting off the audience. Which is what they said they wouldn't do with bebop. No dancing. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to make art. This isn't traditional music, this is art music. But still there was that, and I say it belongs to the blues tradition, that relationship with the audience, that antiphonal relationship with the audience that helps to drive at least the feeling part of this technical ass process, which people are more or less conscious of, the technical part. But the feeling part, I think, has something to do with whatever connection you're making, obviously with the other musicians, but the audience too.
That was such a tough one for me, because my whole thing coming up was, very like such a hermetic fucking world, you know, like if a tree falls in the woods guy. And the idea that of even considering the audience it would sully everything. And it's an insult to them to want to consider them rather than this is what's being presented.
It's a different performance tradition.
And so I came out of that and eventually got slapped in the face with the reality of that thing that you're talking about, that a feel is coming, or for whatever word you want to use, it's metaphysical as fuck, comes at you, and you're double back to it, and it
feedback loop.
It's it's real. That was so hard for me as a early days playing out guy to kind of accept, like, holy fuck, there's
even
this
when
whole
you were
dimension.
Playing your loudest with the trio, or
absolutely.
Bigger?
Then I didn't get that feeling then, because it was so loud, and a bit I kind of thought of it in a bit like bebop, where like they're going so fast and so hard and dropping all this shit. It was like punk rock in a way,
right.
And so when I was playing electric guitar and trio, it was just big, and it would just fill the area, and I would never feel anything off of people.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not until I quieted down, for me,
Right.
And that's just it's just an interesting point you were talking about there, because it's kind of a heavy one for me.
It's funny, especially because it seems like folk and traditional musics are so important to your relationship to your instruments, that's always been a part of those traditions. I mean, it's in the restaurant.
I hear you, man.
It's in the corner in the restaurant.
I know.
It's with people.
Fuck yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, that was a trippy thing for me.
Get your shit together, Paul.
I have tried. And I'm more together than ever, but I still don't have my shit together.
No, man.
But I'm at my most together.
I think I am too, and it's terrifying. Yeah. I think I am too right now, and it's terrifying because it's really hard. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing, of course.
Yeah. It's excruciating.
Yep. And people don't help. No one can really help you.
No. That as much as you might think, it would be great.
I'm nothing without the people dearest to me, and this abstract idea of community that I carry around. Yeah. But it's ideal of community that I carry around. Yeah. But it's really, you face that often, motherfucker, it's just you.
Yeah.
That's real, and it's your responsibility to ultimately do something about that.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to, you have to.
If it's not you, it's not gonna happen.
That's right.
That's crazy, but it's great. And
sometimes you do it compulsively. I think that's what drove me to go to Chicago, what drove me recently to a monastery, what drove me to just up and teach myself any number of things. It's just like, because you're trying to figure out how you're following an impulse that you don't understand at all, obviously.
Yeah. But impulse is a good word.
Just this kind of like, there's this energy behind you that's just pushing you to some stuff.
That in a way is not you.
Right.
That's why you're feeling impelled.
Right.
And it's fascinating, that whole energy of when you get hooked on some fucking shit and you just are going toward it.
And then you look up and you realize the shit that you've been doing and be able to cope to do it or something, and you have to recalibrate. And I feel like I'm in that, like, sort of on the other side of some breakthroughs right now, and haven't been listening. One of the things I had to do was stop listening to music as obsessively as I have done for years, because it's hard to keep to quit a song that's running in my head once it's there. And I think that's in part how I learned to play the jazz song book, the real and the fake books, is because I don't come from any formal training, and so I taught myself to read, and that wasn't until way late into having been playing. And so I had to compensate, and one of the things that I've done is I can memorize, with my ear.
Yeah.
And that has gotten me by in a lot of situations. I was in a band and we memorized 100 tunes from the books, so because we wanted to be able to play without the books. Yeah. you know, and
ditch
so
the book.
ditch the book.
Then we're playing.
Yeah, and I did without any ever having read them.
Yeah,
and so, but that kind of sticky brainedness or whatever, which I think is the tinkerer that I think is in you. It's the same part of the same little part of eternity that we've managed to touch.
Yeah,
can become a debilitating vice.
Yeah. Oh, please, man. Sometimes I can be gone and come up like 6 weeks later, like, oh fuck.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to work with quiet and silence in a way that is new to me, except for my childhood when I feel like I did a lot of just sitting and waiting. A lot of quiet, a lot of sitting, a lot of waiting, and that was. And then it was either really, and it was high in intensity, or it was really quiet. You know, life seemed like that.
Yeah.
So
that is for in relation to composition. You find yourself wanting that?
No.
Or is it just in?
No, I'm still enamored with traditional. You know, thinking about. Actually, Dixieland. I was just listening to an interview with Roswell Rudd, and he was talking about, because he had come out of Dixieland, a Dixieland ensemble, working with his father and Steve Lacy, and I forget who else he said was in the group that it was, would go on to free jazz fame. When he started doing free improvisation and collective improvisation with New York Art Quartet and all that, he's just said, "Oh yeah, that's Dixieland." I've heard other people say the same. Mingus would say it. Free playing, you mean like Dixieland? This idea that, there are motifs and little gestures that return, and there are cycles and little reminders of some sort of textual base. This is really spontaneous composition. And so I'm still, and there's a lot, and I'm filling up a lot of space. By focusing mainly on traditional song form and then figuring out how to break that shit wide open, like the people have been doing since particularly that era of modernism that I think both identify with. So I feel like I'm still trying to crack one mystery for myself, at least, with the writing that I'm doing today. Silence is a part of it, because only to the extent that. Unlike the larger ensemble, No Territory Band, I'm able to connect with the musicians better in the smaller quintet format, such that I'm better able to understand their like how they approach playing the material, and then going back and using that to figure out how new arrangements and new pieces. So really thinking about how to leave the text, make something new, and then figure out a way back to it, or some version of it, but through thinking, especially. So that's the technical compositional thing, and then there's the aesthetic stuff of, no, don't play it like that. Like, play it like that saxophone line, like a singer would play it. Really trying to get to like Mingus and Rudd and these people really into the sound of the instrument. As a not, try to break whatever barrier there is between you and it, right? Don't just be a human playing, sort of being mastered by technology, in other words, but try to, break the barrier between you and it. So that pitch on a piano would be, middle C, but no, you got to take that, it's got fuzzy edges, and force the band to go with you. Maybe sometimes, and just totally eat this, so really.
How does that work in bigger combo, though? Because No Territory,
it was really hard
cats?
to do. That's why I think I was trying to suggest that it was much harder to do in that context.
How many players?
7 total. And so it was me and 5 horns, vibraphone, and drum set. And there were a lot of, I often had more for the horns to do than vibes. I would give him rhythmic tasks, and then occasionally there would be some sort of pattern, harmonic, a pattern of changes. But a lot of it was listen to what they're doing and just go and around this basic idea. But
yeah, changes for I picture it as being sort of like a barge.
right.
It's not, because it's only 7 dudes. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you got to think, like, turning on a dime isn't going to happen.
No, it's harder. Well, unless you're the kind of big band sort of.
Unless everybody sees the dime.
Yeah, right. Because some guy is pointing at it the whole time. Yeah, there's the dime.
Yeah.
Right there.
Then you have a chance.
Right.
But in trio or quartet, sometimes it can happen.
And it's quieter.
That you can
it's
move.
quieter too.
Yeah, man.
And I'm really finding myself whenever it gets silent and to faint, and the audience allows you to do it by not talking through it.
Yeah.
They stay down there with you,
Yeah.
and you realize everything I've done up to this point has meant something, perhaps.
Yeah.
It feels so good. It's the like.
You can never say it.
No.
Like, everything I've done up to this point has meant something. That feels like the worst hubris.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but it feels that good.
Yeah,
Like where you didn't have to yell at anybody to get them to be quiet.
Yeah.
There's no tension. People trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I think. I hope is happening. There's a demonstration of a kind of trust that you've earned while up there, and they go with you and they stay down there with you, and then the note fades out and you look at one another like, damn.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. That is a beautiful moment. That's crazy. We get to do shit like that.
Yep.
That's insane.
And I hope. And no, I mean, if this circuit of folks, which it seems to, it recycles itself. People around the country and elsewhere who are putting together opportunities for people to play, that'll continue in some new form, perhaps, as everything is, as Amazon and iTunes own everything.
Yeah, they
and
do.
the labels go away, and the magazines go away.
Venues go, everything.
Yeah, recordings. The value in a recording goes.
Yeah.
Is lower, lower than even lower than it currently is. We'll still figure out some way to meet.
Yeah.
In a room.
Yeah, God, that feeling is so odd and sort of puts me in mind of like some kind of early cult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where people that are turned on to the same esoteric thing.
Yep.
Meet, and it happens. It feels it.
Yeah.
I love house shows for that reason.
Playing in front of people who are eating who don't want you there. I mean, that's cults have always had to be on the lookout for people who didn't dig the shit.
Yeah.
Who are on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's like to play at a restaurant sometimes. And you go, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Except that the hipster who owns this place now said he wanted cool music.
Yeah.
And his people don't want it.
No, they don't like it.
No, they don't like it.
They're bringing the whole thing down. I don't get good tips. People
don't
exactly.
drink. Exactly. So people will find a way to continue meeting in a room like this, and like that trust thing.
Yeah.
It's sentimental, and it's not sentimental. I mean, it is. It is rather sentimental. It's important enough to me to keep trying.
Yeah, thank God.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Davu, I think we got to end it here.
Yep.
But
I got to get the drums out there.
You're a fucking great interview. So I'm gonna have to hit you up again because I only got to get into a couple things, but there's.
Thank you.
You're a complicated cat, and I'd like to. And thanks a lot for sharing your viewpoints and your doings, man.
Thank you for thank you for offering an opportunity. Something that I've been struggling with lately, in terms of my work, as not just as a person, is like getting really sort of because I teach literature at a university, and I study narrative, and I think we need more poets than ever right now.
Oh, God.
Because narrative, a lot of the stories that we're telling ourselves about who we are and what's happening are harmful. And And so that's made me check myself and how I present myself to people, which is often based on the question that they ask. So I want to thank you for helping me, because one of the things I don't like doing in music and in life is repeating myself too much.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I feel like I've gotten used to telling my story because there are a lot of people who are interested, particularly where we live in the Twin Cities. And after a while, you feel like you're telling someone else's story.
I hear you, man.
And it begins to feel detached from the present in ways that are just not good.
This felt very essential, Davu, to me.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so once again, together, we attain terminus. I'd like to thank my guest this week, Davu Seru, for his performance and conversation, delving into aspects of the Davu Seru story. I'm your host, Paul Metzger, bringing you interviews such as this one, as we move through space and time. Traveling the complex spiral. Multi-directional movements. 3-dimension. 4. We mark our time and do our work. This podcast is a celebration of some of that work. Until next week.